Hello, this is a very early preview video of my next Atari 5200 project. This game's called Intellidiscs, and if you haven't figured it out already from the name, this is a conversion of the Tron Deadly Discs game for the Intellivision, which is one of my favorite Intellivision games. Not sure if it's my absolute favorite, but I'd say it's definitely up there. And it's a game that I've wanted to do for the 5200 for a very long time. And I've decided it's time to actually sit down and do it. So this is what I've got going on right now. I only work on this project on the weekends. I have a much bigger project. I'm doing a PC game during the week. And I wanted to just put up a quick video to show a little bit about what I have going on in this game up to this point, and kind of what you can expect from it going forward. And on this screen here, which is the only screen in the game at the moment, this is the main game, sort of the main playfield. And one thing you might notice right away, if you've played the Intellivision game, is that it's a much darker game. As great as the Intellivision game is, it didn't really look a lot like Tron. It had a really odd color palette. And right off the bat, I decided that I wanted my game to look a lot more like the movie. And that is why it looks the way it does. Another thing I've done is I've gotten rid of the perspective on the arena. The Intellivision game had kind of a 3D perspective where the side walls were angled in toward the back, and the vertical grid lines were angled, to give this illusion of depth. The problem is that I think that really hurt the gameplay, mostly because it was very difficult to move along the side walls. If you tried to move up, you'd keep running into the wall, and I think it just made things a lot more difficult than they needed to be. And so I've decided to get rid of that perspective, and it's going with a much more orthographic perspective, to use the 3D graphics term. So what you can see in this particular screen is the hero character, who is right now the white guy down toward the bottom. And I've got 3 enemy characters just standing around the top. They don't do anything yet. They're just standing there. They have no logic behind them. There's no hit detection or anything like that. In fact, at the moment, there's no animation whatsoever. This restroom sign-looking guy is really the only graphic. And I'll move the little dude around here. As you can see, he can move around, but there's no animation, so it doesn't change. And I should point out, I'm playing this on an emulator on my PC, and controlling it with my keyboard, which is very loud and clacky, so you'll probably hear that a lot over the course of this video. So right now I have the character. He can move around, and he is restrained by the edges of the arena, as you can see here. There is a little bit of overlap with the back wall, so it gives kind of a depth effect. So in the Intellivision game, the way it works is that you have your character, you're armed with a disc. If you've seen the Tron movies, you know what that is. And you throw it at a series of enemy waves that come after you, and they come at you 3 at a time. And they are, for the most part, armed with their own discs that they will throw at you. And there are a few different enemy types and a few different enemy disc types that will appear in various combinations. Now, the way the Intellivision game worked, there was the Intellivision controllers, if you're not familiar with them, have a numeric keypad on them. And you threw your disc using the keys on the numeric keypad. So you could throw in 8 directions using the 1 through 9 keys minus 5. And the 5 key would put you into kind of a blocking mode. And you could also press it again in order to crouch and reduce your profile somewhat. But I never found that to be too terribly useful. I'll put it in the game just for the sake of accuracy, but I never liked that. So the Atari 5200 controllers also have a numeric keypad, And I'm actually planning to support a few different control schemes for this game, but initially I'm just focusing on the keypad scheme, since that is what the original game used. And right now you can see that the keypad-based disc throwing is completely functional. Like here I'm going to throw my disc against the right wall by pressing the 6 key. There it goes. And when it hits the wall, it will return. And like the Intellivision game, the discs turn into squares when they're not lethal, let's put it that way. So as soon as the disc starts to return, it turns into a square and then follows me back until I'm holding it again. So you can throw your disc in 8 directions. There's up left. Oh, and I hit the door. I was going to show that later, but oops. Another thing you can do in the Intellivision game is to recall your disc in flight. And you do that by pressing a throw key again. And I have that implemented as well, so you see here I'm calling it back early. Let me try. There's up and back. I have not implemented the blocking or the crouching yet. That's going to come later. So in the Intellivision game, you're attacked by waves of 3 opponents at a time, and they enter through these doors in the sides. They all come together through one particular side. And on the screen you can see, I have them all active right now. There's 3 doors on each side, although only the ones on the back wall really look like doors. The others are just kind of shapes. So in the Intellivision game, when the doors are initially not there, and when the enemies enter through the door, they enter and the door is blue at first. And if you throw your disc at a door or run into it, you'll I think the manual for the original game calls it jamming it open. And it turns a different color, kind of a greenish color. And at that point, that door will remain open. And if you have open doors immediately opposite each other, you can use them to warp from one side of the screen to the other. So it's very useful to jam the doors open so that you can use them as kind of an escape route. And if you don't jam the doors open, they will disappear eventually. So while you're avoiding the enemies and trying to kill them, you usually want to try to jam those doors open. So that's what I did to this top left door by accident. I threw my disc at it and jammed it open. So that's the open state. And you can see that on one of these side doors here, I'll hit this one. So that is now open. And when you have 2 doors adjacent to each other, you can pass through them to warp to the other side of the screen, and that will open both doors. So you see here I'm going to walk through this door, and now I'm over here, and both doors have switched to their open state. And I can do the same down here. Now it is also possible to jam open a door by just running into it, which I'm kind of doing here by using the screen wrap. This I haven't implemented yet, and I'll have to shut some of the doors off in order to really do it. But if you, for example, this door here, if the corresponding door on the bottom was not there, I could just run into this door and it would jam it open. But in this case, I'll actually warp through it, so I can't do that. And that's probably the next thing I'm going to implement. I may do that tomorrow. So, looking at the game as it stands right now, I have most of the, let's call it environmental logic in place. Like I just said, I still need to do the jamming the door by running into it, which, you know, I kind of already have that in part, because if you can do it by warping through, and you see that's opening both doors. So I just need to tweak that a little bit to handle the case where the door is not present on the other side, and rig up test for it. The movement, in particular, the movement speed I think is probably too slow right now. Maybe, I don't know, I need to play with it. The diagonal movement angle is wrong. I'm going to fix that. And the disc throwing angle on the diagonal also I don't like. I'm probably going to change that as well. And the speed of the disc is very slow right now. That's mostly so that I can pick out bugs easier. That will be sped up eventually. But as far as the environment is concerned, just about everything is there now. The only thing I'm missing is, like I said, that jamming the door by running into it, which I hope to have up and running tomorrow, hopefully. So once that is there, I really have to move on to starting to work on the enemies. And getting the enemies to start appearing and running around and throwing their discs at you and dying when they get hit and things like that. None of these colors are final, really. I think the player color will probably change. The disc color will certainly change. In fact, dealing with the disc colors is one of the more challenging aspects of this conversion. I have written about this a little bit on the Atari Age forums, but the short explanation is that the 5200's color capabilities don't allow me to handle the enemies and the discs the same way the Intellivision does. So I'm going to need to come up with something different. I haven't really settled on what that is going to be yet, but that will be different from the Intellivision game, certainly. Another thing I'm kind of thinking about, I'm not really sure how I'm going to do it, is that the Intellivision has, I'm pretty sure it had 16 directional movement, since the Intellivision control disc, it allowed 16 discrete movement positions, and I'm pretty sure this game used all 16. The 5200 with its analog stick certainly could do that, and it could do far more. I could use it to give full 360 degree movement. I'm not sure if I'm going to, though. I think that may end up being very awkward to play with. Even the 16 movement, I'm not sure if I'm going to do. I may just stick with the traditional 8. But that's a decision I'm going to have to work out after I get more stuff going on and test it and see how I feel about it. But that's kind of where we stand right now. So this game's moving along pretty good. And one thing that really excites me about this is that it's a game I really want. If you talk to people who develop games, they tend to fall into two camps. You have people who actually play their own games, and then people who never touch them again after they're done. And I fall pretty firmly in the I never want to see this game again camp. I spend months, years sometimes working on a project, and by the time I'm done with it, I'm usually just sick of it, and I want to move on to something else. The 3 5200 games I've done, I have barely touched since I completed them. But this is a game that I love so much, and I'm hoping I can really do it justice. And this is the sort of game that once it's done, I'll probably play it a lot. Maybe I'll even jump into one of those high score competitions on Atari Age and win at my own game, which doesn't seem very fair, but oh well. All right, so that's where we're going to cut off for now. At some point, I'll probably post another video of this game as it becomes more developed. The next video will probably wait until I at least have enemies coming in, running around, and throwing things at you and trying to kill you and things like that. So if you are interested in this game or my Atari 5200 projects in general, stick around on this channel and you should be seeing more information about this and future games. Thank you.